Footage from a UN conference this week show human rights activists storming what they've called the AI for Good conference. This happened on Wednesday, and the activists cited the tech sector's complicity in atrocities in Gaza.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I know that you were all expecting to see and listen to Federal Councillor Guy Parmelin.
No thanks for genocide! No thanks for genocide! You are all complicit! No thanks for genocide! No thanks for genocide! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Just days after releasing the report in which Francesca Albanese accused dozens of corporations of profiting from genocide, the UN is now hosting a conference with many of the companies listed. Among them, Microsoft, accused in the report of underpinning Israel's prisons, military, and cybersecurity operations for decades. Microsoft denies any evidence that its technology is being used by Israel for harm, but it has not just faced external criticism. After several months of the ongoing war in Gaza, employee protests began to become a regular occurrence, leading to several workers being fired. But some of those workers went on to form a group called No Azure for Apartheid, which mobilizes current and former employees to combat Microsoft's lucrative tech partnership with Israel. We are now joined by the group's co-founder, Hossam Nasser. Hossam, welcome to MEELive.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So what was your role at Microsoft and how did you get yourself fired?
I was a software engineer. I worked on Microsoft's cloud. Actually, I worked on Azure for 3 years, and I was fired in October last year, a few months after we launched the No Azure for Apartheid campaign, after I dared to organize a vigil on Microsoft campus to honor the lives of the countless Palestinians that they had helped kill with their provision of digital arms to the Israeli military.
How did that conversation between you and your management go when they broke the news to you that you were fired for your activism?
Yeah, they honestly did not really sugarcoat it at all. The day before the vigil, they had tried to shut us down. They told us that this event was unauthorized, and they refused to give us any sort of justification for why. We pointed out other employee-led events that were allowed to continue. We were fundraising for Palestinian humanitarian relief that was matched by the company. And when we asked for why this event was different than others, when we asked to be given any reason why, they simply had nothing to say to us. They just told us it was unauthorized and to move it to a public location. The next day, when we had the vigil, security actually came and started to harass us and even threatened to call the police. And ultimately, that same night, I had a phone call that told me that, from Microsoft HR telling me that I was being terminated effective immediately, and I'm not allowed back on Microsoft campus. I'm not allowed to work for Microsoft again or any of its subsidiaries. But ultimately, it was very, very small sacrifice to make to stand up for what is right and to defend Palestinian human rights.
Did it ever feel like there was any room for dialogue, when employees started to pick up on what they saw as problems within the company? Has there been even any acknowledgement from Microsoft that the things that you are objecting to are at least happening?
Microsoft's strategy from the beginning was to completely silence or ignore its employees. We tried to engage in dialogue many times. We tried working through all the so-called internal channels. We filed HR cases. I spoke to my managers multiple times. We raised questions during company Q&As. We participated in discussions on forums for internal dialogue. And every single time, Microsoft's response would either just ignore our questions, pretend we don't exist, or at times just silence us. We have been deplatformed multiple times. Our website was taken down. Our internal petition was taken down. The forum that I cited where we could ask questions and where we gathered signatures for our first petition was shut down by the company, and only admins could post on it. And that's what led many employees, myself included, to feel like the only way to actually make the company listen to us is to confront them publicly, is to apply pressure on these executives and not just try to appeal to their humanity that is obviously broken. And ultimately, Microsoft did feel the pressure, and they came out with a response. Ironically, on Nakba Day this year, May 15 this year, the same day, 1 year after we launched our petition, and the same day that we delivered our employee petition, instead of responding to their workers and actually, again, addressing them directly, they chose instead to publish a public blog post where they frankly admitted to a lot of the complicity that we were talking about, while claiming to exonerate themselves from being complicit in what they called harming civilians. They admitted actually to directly providing cloud and AI services to the Israeli military directly for the first time. They admitted to the fact that they gave emergency authorization to using those technologies after October 7 beyond the scope of the normal service agreements and beyond the scope of the normal limits on how these technologies can be used. And they even admitted that while they claim they have found no evidence that Microsoft technology is being used to harm civilians in Gaza, they admitted that they don't actually have insight into how their technologies are used when they are run on premises or on Israeli servers. And we also know that almost 50% of all the technology Microsoft sells to the Israeli military is run on premises. So 50% of the technology they sell is unaccounted for, and yet they had the audacity to claim that they have found no evidence that they're being used in harming people, despite all the evidence to the contrary.
So look, the UN is currently holding an AI tech conference just days after releasing a report that condemns several of the participants for, quote, enabling occupation, apartheid, and genocide. What do you make of this?
I think it's absolutely shameful. I think what the Special Rapporteur's report is doing, and what Special Rapporteur is doing in general, is she is trying to save the UN from itself. She is trying to save whatever remnants of the credibility of the so-called rules-based international order of these international agencies that have been completely unwilling or unable to uphold their duties to protect the Palestinian people from genocide. And if the UN is unwilling or unable to, at the very least, stop the massacre that is happening in Gaza, at the very, very least, they cannot be allowed to platform companies like Amazon and Microsoft in a so-called AI for Good conference and give them a platform to whitewash their crimes and to make people ignore the fact that they are powering the Holocaust of our time. The least that the UN can do is to actually honor the recommendations of the Special Rapporteur by recognizing AI and cloud as dual-use technologies, by ending their partnerships with these, every single company that was named in the report, not just for this conference, but in general, by ending the Microsoft office that is at the UN headquarters in New York. I don't know if people know this. Microsoft has an office and the UN headquarters, the same as nation states would. Why would a company like that has an office there in the first place? And this is why we were proud to partner with the BDS campaign and others to organize this protest at the conference and to highlight this contradiction and call on the UN to actually honor its obligations and its commitment to its peacekeeping mission.
Now, you've just indicated quite how much influence Microsoft as a company has, having offices, in the UN like a nation state. We just heard from Francesca Albanese, who has been sanctioned by the US for, of course, her petitioning of accountability for these companies like Microsoft. And I wonder, from what you've seen inside these companies, do you think that companies like Microsoft have had any influence over the White House's decision to sanction Albanese?
I definitely would not be surprised. The reality is, while we talk about how Israel and the Israeli military is the second biggest defense customer for Microsoft, the first biggest defense customer is the U.S. Department of Defense. There is very strong relationships between not just Microsoft, but so many of these very wealthy big tech companies, the oligarchy that has become even more closely tied to this particular administration. There is very, very close ties between them. And to give just one example, when the U.S. sanctioned the International Criminal Court for daring to issue arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, Microsoft rushed to actually close the chief prosecutor of the ICC's account on their servers. So I think there's definitely a very close partnership between Microsoft and the administration. I personally see Microsoft as yet another tool of the American empire, another weapons manufacturer that is expanding U.S. imperialism across the world, with Palestine being its most acute manifestation. So there's definitely this very close homogenous relationship between these executives and the administration. I would not be surprised if those people played a role in the decision that came out.
I mean, this is pretty intimidating. And look, you and your peers have, in cases, lost their jobs. In countries allied with the US and Israel, we are seeing pro-Palestine activists face some of the harshest punitive reactions, sanctions, deportation threats, proscription as terrorists. And you are not going up against an easy enemy here. Some of these tech giants are arguably more powerful than governments around the world. Is your group intimidated?
Absolutely not. I think that what this report in particular, I think, highlighted and reminded all of us is the seriousness of the crime of genocide and the seriousness of the obligation for individuals, for entities, for nation states under the Genocide Convention, under their own statute. And I think this is exactly the kind of message and the kind of reminder that the US and the West have been trying to silence and ignore for so long, because they have led the charge to completely bastardize the notions that they purported to claim for so long, the notions of the international rules-based order, of human rights, of freedoms, of democracy. All of those principles fall if they challenge their interest in supporting a genocidal apartheid entity that is Israel, that is committing a live broadcast AI-assisted genocide as we speak. There could be no sanction or no prescription or no harm that can outweigh the moral weight of complicity in genocide, of even silence in the face of witnessing this genocide, while our tax dollars, while our labor, while our politicians fund it, enable it, justify it, allow it to continue. And I think it is actually an honor for the special rapporteur. I think she should wear it as a badge of honor to be sanctioned by this U.S. administration that has been the biggest arms supplier to this genocidal entity. An enemy of this administration, of this United States of America, is on the right side of history. And I'm sure that this will do nothing to intimidate her or stop her work, and the same for us as well. No matter what they throw at us, it will never be more than the real sacrifices that are being sacrificed every single day by the Palestinians enduring the genocide in Gaza, and that is our compass every single day.
Hossam Nasser, co-founder of No Azur for Apartheid, thank you for your time.